Hey everyone, I hope y'all are having a great day, and today I'll be reviewing Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. I read Celeste Ng's debut novel, Everything I Never Told You, and I don't know how long ago that was, but I do remember that I wasn't the biggest fan. It had been hyped up so much, and it ended up being pretty disappointing for me. But since Little Fires Everywhere is now a Hulu show that's getting a lot of buzz, I decided I'd give her sophomore book a shot, and I'm glad I did. I am really glad I did because I liked it a lot better than I liked her first book. And also, I did notice that Little Fires Everywhere has a higher Goodreads rating than Everything I Never Told You. So maybe other people are vibing the same way I am. If you don't know, Little Fires Everywhere is a domestic literary fiction novel. It's set in the first planned community, Shaker Heights, Ohio, which is basically like the quintessence of white suburbia. We follow a family, the Richardsons, who live in a really nice house, but they also own a duplex, and they rent out this duplex to good-hearted but low-income people. We also follow a mother-daughter duo, Mia Warren and her daughter Pearl, and Mia is a struggling artist. She moves to Shaker Heights, dragging her daughter along with her, and they end up becoming the Richardsons' new tenant in that duplex. So after Mia and Pearl move in, the Richardsons and the Warrens begin to mingle and intertwine, but Mia keeps a lot of her life really private, which raises a lot of questions for Mrs. Richardson. And additionally, there's this adoption case that starts to blow up in the city. So essentially, a Chinese immigrant woman gave birth to a baby, but she was in like a very financially unstable situation at the time, so she dropped her baby at the doorstep of the fire department, knowing that she couldn't give this baby the proper life it needed. So then this affluent white couple is in the process of adopting this baby because they wanted a baby for like a decade at this point. But by the time this adoption process is happening, the Chinese mother has gotten herself back on her feet. She's employed again, and she wants her daughter back now that she's in a better place. So that's essentially the premise of the novel. But the plot really doesn't matter. What I really enjoy about Celeste Ng's plot in this novel in particular is that she writes really good suspense even though you already know what's going to happen. She'll write with a lot of dramatic irony so that you, the reader, will know that something is going on, and you're reading because it's just a matter of waiting to see when the other shoe will drop. My one piece of advice when reading this book is that you have to read to the end. And like, you should know, this book starts off very domestic. Like, you follow these teenagers going to school and these adults going to work, but I promise it becomes so much more than that, and you really need to see through it to the end. At first, I was so annoyed by all of Celeste Ng's characters. They were all just like such stereotypes. Like Mrs. Richardson, for example, was like the well-meaning but problematic white liberal woman. Mia was like the mysterious struggling artist. Moody, who's one of the Richardson sons, is like this typical like nice guy, boy next door. Lexi, the oldest Richardson daughter, is like the golden child, whereas the youngest daughter, Izzy, is like this annoying, angsty rebel. Like, I get it. They were all so incredibly cliche. It gets annoying to read. But as the story goes on, they become so much more dynamic. They grow out of these stereotypical shells, and they get painted in all these different shades of gray. And it's so interesting to track how your alliances are shifting while you're reading the story, because I promise they will move. Like, there's a chunk in the middle of the book where we just delve into Mia's backstory for like pages and pages, and during that chunk I genuinely thought I was going to give this book 2 stars because I thought Mia was annoying. I did not care about her backstory, and I felt so frustrated because I felt like Celeste Ng wasn't giving me any reason to care about reading about this character. But then you keep reading because you have faith that something will come out of it, and it will. I kept reading and I got to see Mia interact with other characters, and I got to see different sides of her, and then you understand why she deserves your empathy. And that's like how the entire novel goes. You know, you see a character, you think you know them, but then you get to see different facets of them in different lights, and then you realize maybe I didn't actually understand who they were. What's weird is that these characters feel so real. It's like they remind you of people you know in real life. And then you're amazed at how Celeste Ng managed to capture something so true to life in a work of fiction. It does take some time to see what Celeste Ng is doing, but if you give up in the middle, you're gonna miss the entire satisfaction of good storytelling. Although I said the plot doesn't matter, which, you know, I still stand by, I do want to say that the adoption case I thought was really interesting. It asks questions like, you know, what are the requirements or qualifications for being a good mother? And like, how can you compare raising a child in affluence where they'll want for nothing versus raising a child in a home of their own culture? And I think Celeste Ng does an excellent job of setting up the issues without trying to make the reader feel a certain way. Like, so you never feel like you have to lean on a certain side. She kind of just gives you the issue and you're allowed to mull it over on your own. I do wish I liked Celeste Ng's writing style better. I find it really generic, and at times I did find it to be a little melodramatic. But overall, it's rarely distracting and it does serve the story pretty well. So those are my non-spoiler thoughts on Little Fires Everywhere. I'm about to go into some spoilers now, so if you haven't read this book and you don't want to be spoiled, I'd advise leaving in 3, 2, 1, bye. Okay, I don't have too much to say in this spoiler section. I was really curious as to what Celeste Ng would decide on how to end the adoption case in the story. I guess I wasn't surprised when the judge, ruled in favor of the white couple, but I also wasn't surprised when BB stole the baby back. And it felt like it suited the story, so I found the ending really, really satisfying. The scene where Elena tries to look at the abortion records drove me crazy. Okay, I know that based on when this book was set in 1997 or whatever, I think HIPAA had only been in place for a year. So I get that. I don't really know what the healthcare system was like at that time. I don't know what it meant to protect patient confidential information, but from my modern perspective, it blew my mind that someone as dumb as Elizabeth was heading this hospital. I could not believe that she didn't lock her monitor before leaving the room with Elena in it. Because firstly, you always need to lock your monitor before you leave the room in accordance to HIPAA. And some people, I think they have their computer set so that it locks automatically after 5 minutes of inactivity, because it's so crucial to be protecting patient information. And I get yes, this is my 2020 mind speaking. This is set over 2 decades earlier. But especially in the context of the story, it made absolutely no sense. You, Elizabeth, that Elena wants to hang out with you because she wants this patient information. You know that. You know that the information she wants is on your computer. And yet, when you leave the room with this woman who wants your information in it, you don't think to lock your computer, you just leave it open for her to peruse. You're the literal director of the hospital. You're the main honcho, and you're making such an elementary mistake. Oh, it made me so angry because it felt like such a cheap way for Elena to get the information she wanted. I felt like there wasn't even resistance, right? She didn't have to sneak her way in or break into anything because the hospital director left it there for her, unlocked. It made absolutely no sense to me. It clearly enraged me. I could not get over the incompetence of this director. And yeah, it just felt so unearned. Something else that felt unearned to me and too convenient was the fact that Mia and Izzy got so close so fast without any resistance. So Mia makes Izzy a sandwich, right, in this scene where they meet each other for the first time. And Izzy's upset, but then Mia's oh, haha, I don't know anything about you. And the fact that she doesn't come in with a prior judgment and the fact that she made her a sandwich is enough for Izzy to just willingly open up. Mia doesn't even ask. She doesn't even seem that curious. She's just here's a sandwich. And Izzy herself volunteers the information. She says, so you want to hear what really happened? And she spills everything. There's no tension or pressure for her to do so. She just splits open and tells Mia everything, and it just felt really unearned. Anyway, moving on. I did really like the irony of Lexi willingly having an abortion, even when so many of the main plot points of this book are about people fighting to have a kid. It was just so deeply ironic and intentional, and I really enjoyed that. Something I wish was brought up again later in the story was Lexi's Yale essay and the fact that Pearl had written it. When that first occurred, I had 2 theories. One was that Lexi was going to get in and then take full credit for the application and that was going to rub Pearl the wrong way. My second theory, and the more likely theory that I was leaning towards, was that she wasn't going to get in and then she was going to blame Pearl for her lack of admission. I thought Lexi was gonna be the only reason I didn't get in was because I trusted Pearl enough to use her essay. But the truth of it was that it was never mentioned again, which I wasn't expecting. And I realized that in itself is commentary, right? Privileged people can exploit the labor of disadvantaged people without a second thought, without ever needing to revisit it. That stuff happens all the time and it's never spoken of again. I understand that choice, but I thought it was interesting. I thought it was odd. I really expected it to come up again and it didn't. I also want to talk about Moody a little bit. Moody becomes such a nice guy TM in regards to Pearl, in the sense that he's super kind and thoughtful and sweet towards Pearl until she's not viable as a romantic option anymore because she's with Trip. And then that he just switches into a slut-shaming prick. Despite all of that, I did feel for him a lot when he took the black moleskin notebook back out of Pearl's bag and it had been unopened and unused. And then when he threw it away, she didn't even notice. I thought that was really sad. I really felt that. But yes, Little Fires Everywhere is a really good book in that it makes you feel a lot and it makes you think a lot. You know, I don't think it's flawless. I kind of wish that it had been workshopped more because I think it could have been a sharper, more refined version of itself. But like as it's written, I really thought it was a pleasure to read. Like I was very glad to have read it, and honestly, I'm just so relieved that I liked it so much better than I liked Everything I Never Told You. If you've read this book, please let me know what your thoughts were on it. If you've watched the Hulu adaptation, I'd love to know your thoughts on that too. I've only watched the first episode so far, and I definitely have some qualms about it. But yeah, please let me know your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. I hope y'all have a fantastic day and happy reading. Bye!